How long could you wait for someone? A week? A month? This mother waited 31 years for her missing son without a single trace. Then, on an ordinary afternoon, the police received a strange tip. Go to the KFC in Connecticut. A place no one expected, held the answer to a lifetime of waiting. If this story touched, you don't forget to leave a comment, and subscribe for more powerful true stories. If you hit me again, Alan, I swear to God I'll walk and never come back. That was what she'd told him the last time. Not the first time, not even the third, but the last. And she had meant it. Lyneth wasn't one to make threats. She was the kind of woman who stayed, who forgave, who believed in family even when family was a man with whiskey breath and bloodshot eyes standing in the hallway at 2 a.m. begging for forgiveness he never earned. It hadn't started that way. In the beginning, Alan was charming. Funny. He made her laugh when no one else could. They'd dance in the kitchen to old radio songs, her in bare feet, him spinning her like they were still kids. They weren't rich, but they had enough. And when Jermaine came along, it felt like maybe they had something worth keeping. But the drinking came soon after. Quiet at first. A few beers at dinner. A bottle of something stronger tucked behind the coats in the closet. Then came the yelling, and eventually the hitting. Not every week sometimes, not for months. But it was always there like a storm building in the bones of the house. He'd cry afterward, every single time. Hold her bruised arms, kiss the swelling on her cheek, whisper how sorry he was. "It's the pressure," he'd say. "It's not you. I love you, Lynn. You know that, don't you?" And she'd nod because she did know. Or she thought she did. Then in the fall of '85, she got pregnant again. Jermaine had just turned 3 and she was starting to believe things were settling. Alan had been sober for 6 weeks. He'd gotten a better job driving long haul, but all it took was one night. She still doesn't know what set him off. Something small, probably. A bill unpaid. A meal that went cold. Maybe nothing at all. But that night when his fist slammed into her ribs and she crumpled to the kitchen floor, everything inside her broke, not just the baby, though she knew the second the blood came that it was gone. It was the next morning when she sat in the hospital alone, hearing the word miscarriage echo around sterile white walls, that she realized she had crossed a line she couldn't uncross. Alan showed up hours later with a bundle of daisies and a sorry-ass look on his face. She didn't speak to him. She filed for divorce the next day. The court gave her full custody of Jermaine. Alan was granted visitation rights only with Lyneth's consent. And for a while she held firm. She wanted to cut him out completely. But it wasn't that easy. Because she still loved him. Not the Alan that hit, but the one who used to warm bottles at 2 a.m., the one who kissed her shoulder while she stirred the Sunday stew, the one who in rare sober moments would lift Jermaine into his arms and make airplane noises that sent the boy into fits of laughter. She didn't trust Alan, but she trusted Jermaine's joy. And when he'd ask, all wide-eyed and hopeful, "Is Daddy coming this weekend?" her heart cracked in places she thought had healed. So she said yes, slowly, cautiously, one Saturday at a time. And at first it seemed okay. Alan showed up on time, sober, sometimes even brought snacks or toys. Jermaine would return home bubbling with stories, and Lyneth would pretend she wasn't terrified. She told herself it was progress, that maybe, just maybe, things could be civil. That illusion lasted 6 months. Then came June. It was already hot when she woke up that Saturday, the kind of sticky summer heat that pressed in on the skin like memory. She took her time that morning, packed Jermaine's little weekend bag, made him pancakes, shaped like Mickey Mouse, combed his curls gently so he wouldn't fuss. He wore his favorite sneakers. She told him he'd see his dad at 4 o'clock sharp. She didn't hear from Alan all day. That wasn't unusual, but it still made her uneasy. She arrived at the parking lot near the Islington Avenue dollar store at 3:50. The plan was for Alan to drop Jermaine off there, a public place, safer that way. She brought the stuffed lion in the seat next to her. Brown eyes, soft fur. Something to surprise her son with when he climbed into the car. She glanced at the clock. 4:01. No sign of them. She leaned out the window, scanning the sidewalk. A few couples passed. A man with a grocery bag. A teen on a bike. But no Alan. No Jermaine. 4:06. Still nothing. She turned the AC off and opened the door, letting the hot air flood in. Her hands fidgeted with the lion's mane. She kept imagining Jermaine's face when he saw it, that grin with the crooked baby teeth. She smiled, then stopped. Her gut had started twisting. By 4:10, the air felt wrong. She called Alan's number, straight to voicemail. Her thumb stabbed the redial button harder this time. Nothing. Again. A third time. Still nothing. The robotic voice kept saying what she already knew. The number you have dialed is not available at this time. Her hands were slick now, fingers slipping on the phone as she tried to hold it steady. Her breath caught in her throat, shallow, quick, like someone had pressed a pillow to her face. She leaned forward, gripping the steering wheel with one hand, while the other pressed the phone tighter to her ear like that might change something. Still nothing. Then she opened the door, stepped out. Hot air slammed into her. Not just heat weight, like the sky had thickened. Her knees felt unsure. The back of her neck prickled. She shaded her eyes with a trembling hand, eyes darting up and down the street. The sounds around her, traffic birds, children's laughter somewhere far, all turned distant, tinny, unreal. Every time a car turned the corner, her heart clenched. That could be them. Her body leaned forward, eyes narrowing, desperate, until the vehicle rolled past, revealing a stranger behind the wheel. Not Alan, not Jermaine. Her chest began to hurt, not just emotionally, physically. Her heart thudded unevenly, her breaths short and sharp like she'd been running uphill. A drop of sweat rolled down her back, cold and wrong. She was shaking and hadn't noticed until she tried dialing again and dropped the phone. It clattered on the pavement loud enough to make her flinch. She crouched to pick it up, and that's when she saw her reflection in the window hair stuck to her face. Wild eyes, mouth slightly open like she couldn't get enough air. She straightened slowly, hands still shaking, and spun in a circle, checking every angle, every crosswalk, every parked car. She was talking to herself now, barely above a whisper. Come on, Alan, where the hell are you? She grabbed the stuffed lion off the seat, almost crushing it in her grip, then immediately dropped it like it burned. The toy landed face down on the pavement. Something cracked open inside her. She knew not the whole truth, not yet, but some deep, unspoken part of her knew. He wasn't coming, and Jermaine wasn't with her. She backed into the car seat slowly, not because she wanted to sit, but because her legs didn't feel strong enough to hold her up anymore. Her body was here, but her mind had already started spinning through 100 what-ifs, each worse than the last. What if he got in a crash? What if they're lost? What if he's drunk again? What if he's lying in a ditch? What if he took him? That last thought came cold and sharp. Her hands began to shake. The lion slipped from her grip, hit the pavement with a dull thud. She didn't bother picking it up. She didn't drive home. She turned the wheel, sharp tires screeching as she veered off the main road. Her hands were shaking, one eye blurred with sweat, or tears, she couldn't tell anymore. The sun was starting to set behind the trees, but all she could see was red and panic. The sign came up quick. Police station. She pulled in, crooked one tire on the curb, and flung the car door open. She didn't close it, just ran. Slippers slapping the pavement. Her purse half open, the stuffed lion still crammed in her fist like a weapon. She pushed through the glass doors, almost slipped on the tile inside. I need help, please. My son's gone, she shouted, voice already cracking. A young officer behind the desk looked up, startled. Ma'am, he's 5. Jermaine. My baby. I was supposed to pick him up. His father was dropping him off, and they didn't show. Please, you need to do something. The officer stood up, hands held out like he was trying to stop a runaway cart. Okay, slow down. Let's take this one step at a time. No! She screamed, There's no time he's missing. My baby's missing. Don't you get it? By now, another officer had come out from the hallway. A woman, stern face, too calm. Ma'am, please sit down. I'm not sitting down, Lyneth wailed, pacing in small, desperate circles. You need to send someone out there. He was supposed to be there at 4. It's almost 6. They never showed. I called and called. No answer. I don't know where he is. Her voice cracked so hard it hurt her throat. She coughed, gasped, clutched the lion to her chest like it was Germain himself. The first officer moved to the computer. And this is your ex-husband. Was he scheduled for visitation today? She nodded frantically. Yes, but I'm the custodial parent. He only sees him when I say so. And I said today was okay, just today. But they didn't come back. He didn't come back. Okay. The woman cut in, glancing at her watch. What time exactly did you expect them? 4. Lyneth gasped. 4 sharp. I was there. I waited. They never showed. And she dropped to her knees. Just like that. Like her body gave out on her. Ma'am, the woman said again, louder now, but not unkind. Look, I understand you're scared, but it hasn't been long enough to file a missing persons report. Lyneth blinked up at her. What? We generally have to wait 24 hours. For children, it's often shorter, but you're looking at only 2 hours. It could just be a delay. Maybe car trouble. Maybe... It's not car trouble, she shrieked, palms flat on the tile floor. He took him. Don't you see? He's done it before he drank. He hit me. He's not right in the head. He's gone. And he took my boy. Silence fell over the room for a moment. The 2 officers exchanged a glance. Has he ever threatened to take your son before? The woman asked. No, but he lost it before. When I was pregnant, he hit me. I lost the baby. Her voice dropped into a whisper. He can't be trusted. Please. The woman sighed. I'm sorry. We understand this is serious, but unless there's reason to believe the child is in immediate danger or evidence of a crime. Are you kidding me? Lyneth screamed, standing now unsteady. I just told you he's dangerous. What more do you need? A body. A ransom note, ma'am, the male officer said again. Firm now. We'll make a note of your concern. If you don't hear anything in the next few hours, come back or call. But for now, there's nothing we can do. Lyneth stared at them. Just stared. As if they'd both grown horns and were speaking a language she'd never heard. That night she slept, sitting up on the living room couch, the lion clutched tight to her chest. 2 days passed before an officer came by. He had soft eyes and a notepad. He asked a lot of questions, took notes, promised they'd follow up. But his face said otherwise. It said, We've seen this before. It said, Don't get your hopes up, ma'am. They searched. A little. Enough to file paperwork. Enough to say they tried. But Alan had vanished. No bank activity, no calls. Nothing. Just gone. And Germain with him. That night, Lyneth sat at the kitchen table long after the sun went down, staring at the phone like she could will it to ring. She whispered one word to the silence. Why? But the house didn't answer, and neither did God. The first year, she still put his dinner plate on the table. She did it out of habit at first, just an extra plate. A small fork, folded napkin, and the little blue cup he used to insist on the one with the cartoon dog that had started to fade from too many runs in the dishwasher. She didn't notice she was doing it until halfway through the meal, when the seat across from her stayed empty and the cup sat untouched. That first time she left the table and cried in the bathroom with the door closed and the faucet running. By the 3rd year, the plate was never brought out again, but the cup stayed. Always on the shelf just above the stove, facing outward, like he might come home and reach for it himself. Lyneth didn't move. She didn't sell the house or repaint the walls. She didn't box up his toys or donate his clothes, not even when the shirts faded and the elastic on his socks gave out. She told herself it was because he might still need them. that he'd come back and ask where his red hoodie went and she'd be ready. But the truth was simpler. Letting go felt too much like giving up. Every year on his birthday, she bought a single white candle. She didn't do parties, no balloons. Just the candle, a slice of store-bought cake, and a folded photo of him propped beside it. In some years, she said a prayer. In others, she just sat in silence. The worst years were the ones where she couldn't remember the sound of his laugh or whether his front teeth had come in yet when he disappeared. It didn't get easier. People said it would, but they lied. Hope is cruel that way. It keeps you tethered to something that's not there. And when nothing comes, not a phone call, not a letter, not even a blurry sighting from some gas station across the country, you start to think you're going crazy. But you keep hoping anyway because what else is there? She filled out every form, registered with every missing persons database she could find, American ones too, just in case. She called hotlines, mailed out flyers, sent emails to organizations with names like Hope Lives Here and Find My Child. Sometimes people responded, usually with polite words and vague reassurances. A few sent photos, blurry ones of boys who might look like Jermaine from a distance, but none were him. After a while, she could tell within seconds. Eyes were always wrong. His eyes were deep brown, soft, but curious, like they were always working something out. She remembered the way he squinted when he smiled, the slight left tilt of his right ear, how his bottom lip poked out when he was thinking hard. None of the boys in those photos had his mouth. His eyes. His little dimple near the chin that only showed when he laughed too hard. The photos kept coming, and she kept looking. By year 7, the neighbors stopped asking. People got uncomfortable around her, not out of meanness, just not knowing what to say anymore. What do you say to a woman whose child's room has been untouched for nearly a decade, whose front porch still has the same wind chime he picked out from a street fair when he was 4, whose eyes still flicker toward every child she sees at the grocery store, just in case? They whispered, of course. Said maybe Alan had taken him out of love, not malice. Maybe the boy was better off. Maybe it was time to let go. But they didn't know what she knew. They hadn't lived in the house with that man. They hadn't seen the look in his eyes the night he came back drunk and slammed her into the wall so hard she lost a baby. They hadn't felt his fingers wrapped around her wrist, pressing hard while he cried and begged and said he'd change. She never had proof. That was the worst of it. No note, no threat, no video. Just a missed appointment, a vanished car, and a trail that led nowhere. The cops didn't care. Said Alan had a right to visitation, and unless he crossed the border illegally or broke custody outright, it was a domestic dispute, not a crime. No foul play suspected. That's what they put on the report. No foul play. Like the loss of her son was just technical. So she searched on her own. She learned how to scan public records. Marriage licenses, DMV records, school enrollments, changed her phone plan so she could make long-distance calls for free. Some nights she stayed up until 3 a.m., scrolling databases full of children's faces, most too young, some too old, all strangers. She kept a box in the hall closet full of every printed email, every flyer, every photograph sent her way. Sometimes she'd take the whole thing out and sit cross-legged on the living room rug, sorting and resorting, trying to find patterns, trying to find meaning, trying not to fall apart. There were moments, sure, where she considered that maybe he was gone for good, that maybe Alan had done something terrible and buried it in a place she'd never know. But that kind of thought, it was like poison. You couldn't sit with it too long or it would rot you from the inside. Instead, she clung to the only thread she had. If he's alive, he'll remember me. Someday, he'll come looking. She told that to a reporter once, a young woman with sharp eyes and a notepad who wanted to write a piece about long-term missing cases. Lyneth agreed to talk, told her everything. And at the end, when the reporter asked what kept her going, she said, "No mother should have to live like this. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. But if my boy's out there and he's breathing, I know he'll find his way back. You don't forget your mother." Not if she loved you right. They only used 2 lines from her in the article. Neither was that one. Still, she cut it out and saved it, tucked it in the box. That box got heavier with every passing year. Not just with paper, but with time, with silence. But she never stopped. Never stopped checking her phone in the middle of the night just in case there was a voicemail from an unknown number. Never stopped watching the news, waiting for the day someone said, "A man was found today living under a false name." Never stopped walking a little slower past schoolyards, scanning the faces of teenagers she didn't know. Hope aged her more than grief ever could. And yet it kept her going. Because somewhere deep down in the parts of herself she hadn't abandoned yet, she believed one thing more than any other: Jermaine was still out there. And one day, somehow he'd come home. Some 31 years after her boy vanished, like smoke when most would have given up and long stopped hoping, Lyneth found herself trying to live. It was a Wednesday when the call came. Lyneth was folding dish towels in the kitchen, hands working, but mind somewhere else like always. The phone rang, not her cell, but the landline, the old beige one mounted on the wall, the one she never unplugged, even though no one ever used it. She nearly didn't answer, but something in her chest moved, a flutter. She wiped her hands, picked up. "This is Lyneth." There was a pause, like the person on the other end was trying to figure out how to talk to a ghost. "Mrs. Saunders," the voice said. Male, steady but soft. "My name's Ted Davis. I work with the Missing Children Society of Canada. I know this is out of the blue, but I was wondering if we might talk. In person, if that's all right with you." She didn't remember agreeing, but somehow 2 days later he was in her living room holding a manila folder in one hand and a coffee in the other. He didn't talk much at first, just listened, asked a few questions, the kind she'd answered 100 times before, but in a different tone, not clinical, not procedural. Like he wanted to know her, not just the facts. At one point, she asked him flat out, "Why now?" He didn't lie. "Because I saw your file, and I saw your face in it. And I thought we've left this woman in the dark too damn long." That's when she cried. Not loud, not messy, just 2 long tears down the sides of her cheeks that she didn't wipe away. Ted stayed an hour, maybe more. Promised he'd take a fresh look. Promised he'd follow every lead, even the ones others had called dead ends. And before he left, he said something that stuck. "I can't promise I'll find him, but I promise I won't stop until I've got nowhere left to look." And she believed him. Weeks went by, then a few more. He checked in. Not always with news, sometimes just to say he was still working, sometimes to ask for old photos again, clearer if she had them. She dug through shoeboxes and dresser drawers and sent him everything. Back then, all she knew was that someone was finally taking it seriously. Then came the call from Washington. Ted had been attending a joint seminar in D.C., a gathering of investigators, forensic analysts, missing persons, specialists, one of those events with too many name tags and coffee in cardboard cups. During a breakout session, someone mentioned the Jermaine Saunders case. A few folks nodded like they'd heard it before. Then someone, a liaison from a U.S. task force, leaned forward and said, "Wait a second. You said the father disappeared too." That opened a door. Turns out the feds had an old flagged case on their end. A man living under the name Haley Randolph D'Souza moved through New York and North Carolina, now believed to be settled somewhere in Connecticut. The man had a son, around the right age, brown eyes, same build. Ted called Lyneth the next day. He didn't say too much, didn't want to get her hopes up, just told her he had a new thread to pull. She didn't sleep that night, didn't sleep the night after either. Within a month, Ted had looped in the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They had more tools, more reach. They started digging not just into Haley D'Souza, but into every record that name had ever touched. Lease agreements, driver's licenses, utility bills, employment history, and slowly, piece by piece, a picture formed. This man, whoever he was, had lived like a ghost. No social media, paid mostly in cash, moved every few years. but he wasn't invisible. Not completely. A database search turned up a scan of a state ID application from Connecticut. Attached was a photo of a young man, mid to late 20s, brown skin, wide jaw, eyes that squinted just slightly at the corners. Ted stared at the photo for a long time before printing it. He didn't send it to Lyneth right away. Instead, he flew down to Hartford, met with a contact at the State Department. They confirmed the ID was valid, belonged to the son of Haley D'Souza, went by another name. Now one that had no link to Jermaine, no link to Alan, nothing. A clean slate. But the face. The damn face. Ted took that photo to 2 different facial recognition teams, one in Canada, one in DC. Both ran matches against old-school photos, baby pictures, family snapshots Lyneth had saved over the years. By October 2018, both teams said the same thing, high-probability match. Jermaine. 31 years gone, and here he was, living, breathing, working a job, paying rent, existing in a world where he believed his mother had died giving birth. Ted didn't tell Lyneth right away, not because he didn't want to, but because one piece was still missing. Alan. If this man was really Alan under another name, if he'd been living a lie this long, moving his son from place to place, then he'd broken more laws than one could count. They couldn't risk tipping him off, couldn't let him vanish again. So they waited. Until finally a break. A tip came in from a local, a teenager who worked evenings at a KFC in Vernon just outside Hartford. Said an old guy named Haley came in all the time, ate the same thing, sat in the same booth. Friendly but kept to himself, always tipped in cash. Ted got the call late at night, sat in his car for a long time after hanging up. Then he dialed Lyneth. He didn't say it outright, not yet. Just, "I need you to be ready." She didn't ask what for. She already knew. Because hope, even the kind that had worn thin from years of heartbreak, has a way of knowing when it's time to open the door again. They hit the KFC just after 2:30 in the afternoon. Slow time, just a few folks lingering with half-eaten legs and lukewarm mashed potatoes. The parking lot shimmered in the summer heat, asphalt cracked and faded. A loose napkin fluttered by like it didn't know what was coming. Inside it smelled like grease and something too sweet. The kind of place you don't think much about. Just stop in, get your bucket, get out. But that day, it was something else. The plain-clothed officers pushed through the doors first. One of them shouted loud enough to make the counter girl drop her pen. "Police, don't move!" People froze. Plastic trays clattered. One woman spilled her drink. A kid started crying. And in the far corner by the window, same booth every Thursday according to the kid who made the call, sat an old man with a paper cup and a half-eaten chicken breast. He didn't move. Didn't flinch. Just looked up, blinked once, and slowly raised both hands. His fingers were swollen knuckles thick with arthritis. His nails yellowed at the edges. The years had done their job. But his eyes, they were the same ones from the photo. The officers swarmed in, guns out, but low. They surrounded him. One pulled out a printed image and held it up beside the man's face. Alan didn't say a word, didn't ask why, didn't argue. They asked for his name. "Haley D'Souza," he answered, voice calm like he was ordering another combo. "You got ID?" He pulled out a worn wallet and handed it over. The younger cop looked it over, then he looked back at Alan. "That your real name?" There was a pause. Maybe a second, maybe 3. They cuffed him right there against the sticky red booth. People were whispering. Phones were out. Somewhere the fry machine beeped, ignored. And then from the other side of the dining room came a voice that cut through everything like a blade. "Dad?" Everyone turned. A tall man stood near the soda machine holding a tray, mouth half open. Maybe early 30s, neatly cut hair, button-up shirt, brown eyes, familiar eyes. He took a step forward, his tray slipping from his fingers. The cup hit first, then the chicken scattering across the tile. He didn't even notice. "What's going on?" the man asked, voice cracking. What's happening?" Alan didn't speak. One of the officers stepped between them. "Sir, we're going to need you to stay back." "That's my father!" he shouted, panicked now. "What are you doing to him?" Another officer moved in to steady him, but the man Jermaine pulled away. "You can't do this. He didn't do anything. He raised me." They tried to explain gently at first, that there had been a warrant, that they believed this man was someone else, that there was more to the story. But Jermaine wasn't listening. "You don't understand," he said, tears welling up, voice almost begging. "He's a good man. He took care of me. He worked nights. He never let me go hungry. He didn't hurt anyone, he saved me. Please don't take him." And Alan, still cuffed, still silent, finally looked up. He met Jermaine's eyes, and for the first time he spoke to his son. "Go home, son." "But it's done." Jermaine shook his head. "You didn't do anything wrong." "That's not true." The room fell quiet. Alan straightened as much as the cuffs would allow. He looked tired. Not just old, but worn out, like something used up too long and never put down. "They're here because of what I did. You just didn't know." Jermaine stepped back like he'd been slapped. The officers led Alan out, through the door past the parking lot into a waiting car, and Jermaine stood in the middle of a fast food joint staring at a tray of chicken on the floor like it could tell him something that made sense. He didn't cry. Not then. But the tears came later. In the courthouse where the room smelled like dust and cold air, and too many sad stories. They laid it out simple. Alan Saunders, aka Haley D'Souza, had taken his son across the border in 1987 in violation of a custody agreement. He'd used fake documents, false names, changed states every few years. No school records, no real paper trail, but he'd never abandoned the boy. He'd raised him, worked 2 jobs, paid rent on time, bought birthday gifts, taught him to drive, and never not once told him the truth. Jermaine sat behind the glass listening to lawyers and judges speak in tones too flat for what was being said. He kept wringing his hands' knuckles, white face blank. When the list of charges was read, he didn't look at his father. But when it came time to speak, he stood. Not for the judge, not for the press, for Alan. "He raised me when nobody else did," Jermaine said, voice soft but steady. "He cooked my meals. He made me do my homework. He told me to be kind even when we didn't have much." He paused. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't. But I still can't make myself hate him. Not when he was the only parent I ever had." The room was quiet. Even the lawyers stopped scribbling. Afterward, in the hallway, one of the agents told Lyneth the hearing would continue the next day. But she didn't move. She was staring through the glass at her son, her grown son, the boy with her eyes, the boy she'd waited 31 years for. And now he was real and here and hurting, caught in a truth he didn't ask for. Her feet didn't take her to him. Not yet. Some distances take more than a few steps to cross. It was raining when the plane landed. Not a heavy, stormy kind of rain, just a soft, steady drizzle, the kind that makes the pavement shine and the lights reflect twice as bright. Lyneth stood near the arrivals gate, her coat clutched at the collar, not because she was cold, but because her hands had nothing else to do. Her heart was hammering so hard she could feel it in her teeth. The whole thing felt like a dream she didn't quite believe was real yet. Ted had called the day before. Just his voice on the line had made her knees buckle. He said it softly, slowly, as if he was afraid to break her. "Lyneth, he's alive. Jermaine is alive." She didn't cry right away. At first, she just sat on the floor where she'd dropped back against the fridge, staring at nothing. But then it came not like a movie scene, but rough and uneven. The kind of crying that steals your breath. Now she was here, waiting at the Connecticut airport, her palms sweaty even in the cool air. She'd bought a new blouse for this, something simple and soft, but it didn't matter. Nothing could prepare her, not after 31 years. Every time a man walked through the gate, her breath hitched. Too old, too young, not him, until he appeared. He didn't say a word at first, just walked slowly, unsure, scanning the crowd with a look that said he wasn't sure this was real either. He was tall, shoulders broad, face strong, but the eyes, those eyes, they were the same. Brown, deep, and kind. Lyneth's hand flew to her mouth. She stepped forward, barely able to walk, and then he saw her. His lips parted as if to say something, but nothing came out. She dropped her bag and ran. So did he. They met in the middle, arms thrown around each other like no time had passed, but it had. So much time. A lifetime. But in that moment, it folded in on itself. Lyneth touched his face, his cheeks, his jaw. "Are you real?" she whispered. "My baby. Are you real?" Jermaine just nodded. His throat moved, but no words came. His eyes brimmed and spilled. "I'm here, Mama," he finally said. "I'm here." They stood like that for a long time, people moving around them like water around stone. A woman pushing a stroller smiled. An old man wiped a tear. No one interrupted. Back at the apartment, a quiet little rental Ted had helped arrange, Lyneth made chicken. Not because Jermaine had asked, but because she needed something to do with her hands. It felt strange cooking again for someone. Jermaine sat at the tiny table watching her. "I don't eat meat anymore," he said after a minute. She froze. "Oh, I'm sorry." He smiled. A small, crooked smile that reminded her of when he was 5. "It's okay. Make the chicken, Mama. I'll eat it today." And he did. They sat there, just the two of them, chewing slowly, like if they moved too fast it would all vanish. He asked about her. What she'd done all these years. If she ever remarried. She hadn't. There was only ever Alan. And after Alan, there was only silence. She asked about him. What he'd believed. He told her the story piece by piece. How his father said his mother died during childbirth. How they moved town to town, always starting over. How Alan taught him to ride a bike in a grocery store parking lot. How he worked odd jobs. How he was kind, strict, but kind. "I loved him," Jermaine said, eyes lowered. "I didn't know what he'd done." "You don't have to explain," Lyneth said, voice shaking. "He raised you. I understand that." "But he lied to me every day," Jermaine whispered. "He made me believe you were dead." "And yet here you are," she said. "We found our way back." They didn't sleep much that night, just talked, and sat in silence when words got too heavy. The days that followed were cautious. Not cold, not awkward, but slow. They didn't rush to make up for the lost years. They couldn't. That time was gone. But they had this time. Lyneth asked if he wanted to go public, to speak with the media, share their story. Jermaine shook his head. "Not yet," he said. "I'm still trying to understand what's real." She respected that. They spent their days walking through parks, sitting on benches, flipping through old photo albums she brought from Canada. He pointed at a photo of him as a toddler in overalls holding a wooden airplane. "I remember that," he said. Lyneth smiled. "You used to call it your sky boat." He laughed, a full, honest laugh. The first she'd heard from him. In the evenings she cooked. He helped dry dishes. It felt ordinary, which made it feel sacred. At night she sometimes stood in the hallway and watched him sleep. He curled slightly just like he used to in his crib. She'd lean against the doorframe and think, this is real. This is now. A few weeks later, they held a small press conference. Nothing big, just a few reporters, a short statement. Jermaine didn't speak, but Lyneth did. She stood at the podium, hands clasped, voice steady. I want to thank the authorities in both countries, the volunteers, and especially Mr. Ted Davis, who never stopped digging, she said. But most of all, I want to say this to any parent still waiting: don't lose hope. She paused, swallowing the lump in her throat. 31 years I waited, 31 years of silence. But I never stopped lighting candles on his birthday, never stopped believing he'd remember me. And he did. The cameras clicked. A few people wiped their eyes. Back home, Jermaine hugged her. "You were strong," he said. "No," she replied, squeezing his hand. "I was a mother, that's all." As time passed, things settled, quietly, carefully. Jermaine chose to keep his legal name, said it was the only identity he'd known and he needed time to reconcile. Lyneth didn't argue. "If that's the name you want," she told him, "then that's the name I'll call you." But in her heart, he was still Jermaine. Her Jermaine. They started making plans. She'd stay longer this time, maybe even move if things felt right. They took walks every Sunday, tried new foods, watched movies, old ones he'd never seen, ones she used to dream of watching with him. One evening, he turned to her during the credits of Forrest Gump, eyes a little misty. "I miss this," he said. She didn't ask what. She just nodded. "I did too." Months later, a journalist wrote about their story, called it the longest parent-child reunion case in North American history. People across the country sent letters, some from mothers still searching, some from children who had reconnected. Lyneth read each one. Some she answered, some she couldn't. But she kept every envelope, just like she used to keep the flyers, because now she had a new kind of box, one filled with gratitude instead of grief. And when asked what she believed now, after everything, all the years, the silence, the pain, she said, "Hope doesn't die. It waits. It sits in the quiet, even when no one believes anymore. And sometimes, when you least expect it, it answers back." You know, after writing and sharing this story with you all, I just want to take a quiet moment here because, damn, this one stays with you, doesn't it? Lyneth's journey isn't just a story about a mother losing her son. It's a story about what it means to love someone beyond reason, beyond time, and even beyond hope. 31 years. Most people wouldn't last 31 days without answers, and yet she kept going. Candle after candle, year after year, holding on with nothing but memory and belief. What really hit me the hardest was how this wasn't just a tale of tragedy. It became a story of resilience, redemption, and reunion. That no matter how much was stolen, there was still something left to rebuild. The human spirit. It breaks, yes, but sometimes it bends in ways that let it heal again. And Jermaine caught between the man who raised him and the truth of who he really was. That's not a choice any of us would want to make. And yet through all the pain, there was still compassion, still love. That part. That's where I think the story becomes deeply human. It's messy, it's raw, but it's real. So if this story moved you even a little, if it made you think of your own mom, or someone you lost, or someone you're still waiting for, drop a comment below. I want to hear your thoughts, your stories, your reflections. And hey, if you believe in hope, share this with someone who might need it today. Thanks for sticking with me till the end. Let's keep talking down there in the comments.